Hello, I'm Simon Whistler, you're watching TopTenz, and in the video today, the top 10 far-out facts about David Bowie. David Bowie was a man who lived a life filled to the brim with adventure, mystery, and hairspray. During his time here on Earth, Starman accomplished more in a decade of his career than most could do in 5 lifetimes. For this reason, even fans of Bowie aren't aware of the full scope of the kind of crazy crap that he got up to during his half-century-long career. Number 10. He didn't know how to pronounce his own name, which he had previously changed twice. Born David Robert Jones, Bowie decided to change his name early in his career to Tom Jones in 1965 in order to avoid being mistaken for Monkees singer Davy Jones. Just a week after making this decision, though, Welsh singer Tom Jones released his smash hit It's Not Unusual in anticipation of the Carlton dance phenomenon of the 90s. Annoyed, the younger singer changed his name again to David Bowie after the famous American knife, supposedly because, like him, it had 2 edges. The problem was that throughout his entire career, Bowie pronounced his last name as well Bowie, while Jim Bowie, the man who invented the knife, actually pronounced it completely differently. This is something the singer he was totally unaware of until he visited Scotland and heard everyone pronouncing it wrong. Confused, Bowie came to the conclusion that how his name was pronounced wasn't as important as people knowing it in the first place. Number 9. He almost died because he ate nothing but peppers for a month. The album Station to Station is considered one of Bowie's best. It was released in 1976 to rave reviews, with Bowie himself remaining largely oblivious to the album's success later in life because he spent much of the recording process blitzed out of his mind on cocaine. Bowie spent virtually the entire recording process in a state of near psychosis, surrounding himself with ancient Egyptian artifacts and spending much of his time ranting about witches trying to steal his semen. As a side effect of his cocaine-only diet, Bowie largely lost his appetite and subsisted on nothing but peppers washed down with cold milk. That diet, it totally nearly killed him, with his weight actually dropping below 100 pounds at one point. The whole experience shook Bowie, who, when asked what he thought of Los Angeles after recording the album there, replied simply, "The fuck place should be wiped off the face of the earth." Number 8. He was voted the best dressed Briton ever. David Bowie changed his appearance and outfit more times than an indecisive Dark Souls player. He donned everything from suits sharp enough to give the statue of David a paper cut to custom-made dresses, well, just because he could. In a 2013 poll, Britons recognized Bowie's commitment to constant reinvention by voting him the best dressed Briton in history. Bowie managed to walk away with nearly 50% of the vote, beating out everyone from Queen Alexandra to Beau Brummel, aka the man who invented the suit. It speaks to Bowie's universal appeal and androgynous appearance that a majority of polled Britons felt that he dressed better than all of British royalty, as well as the guy who invented the concept of wearing a suit. Number 7. He's an integral part of the Metal Gear Solid universe. David Bowie possessed an uncanny ability to alter his physical form like a lizard man, or if you prefer, a man-lizard. Bowie actually changed the way he looked so much that throughout his career he's inadvertently styled himself to look like every character in the video game series Metal Gear Solid. As it turns out, contrary to what you might think, this is totally not an accident, and Bowie is actually a key part of the Metal Gear Solid universe. Indeed, key characters and plot points have been named after his various alter egos and his songs. As if this was not overt enough, the character Raiden was described as looking exactly like David Bowie in the novelization of Metal Gear Solid 2, while another character called The Fury quotes Bowie as he flies into space and explodes. If all of this is just seeming a little bit odd to you, do remember that Metal Gear Solid is a video game that claimed its main character invented Mountain Dew, Doritos, and Axe body spray. Number 6. He saved the first music recorded in space. A few years ago, real-life spaceman and all-round badass Commander Chris Hadfield recorded a cover of David Bowie's Space Odyssey in space, making it the first music video ever recorded in, well, space. Bowie, he absolutely loved the cover and personally thanked Hadfield for singing it, calling it the most moving and beautiful rendition of the song that he's ever heard. The problem was, YouTube kept taking the video down because although Bowie wrote and sang the song, he didn't own the rights to it. Now this put our friend YouTube in a bit of a legal quandary, as although Bowie's publisher was correct in asserting that it owned the rights to the song, said rights didn't apply in outer space. And that's an argument Bowie put forward on Hadfield's behalf, making him instrumental in making sure that the first cover recorded in the upper stratosphere stayed freely available for humanity to enjoy. And, well, speaking of covers, let's move on to number 5. Number 5, he was annoyed by a Nirvana cover. In 1993, Nirvana covered one of Bowie's most famous hits, The Man Who Sold the World. This was much to the surprise of the singer, who was shocked that he was a big enough part of the American musical landscape for Nirvana to even know who he was. After Kurt Cobain passed away, Bowie expressed regret at never being able to pick Cobain's brain and figure out why he chose to cover his song, once saying that simply having the chance to speak with the grunge legend would have been real cool. Although Bowie was ultimately flattered by the cover, he did become somewhat annoyed at its enduring legacy as a Nirvana song. Bowie would later note that when he played the song at concerts in the States, younger fans would approach him to talk about how neat it was that he'd covered a Nirvana song. So what was Bowie's reaction to this? Well, he simply called them a tosser and told them to fuck off. Number 4, Christopher Nolan begged him to be Nikola Tesla. David Bowie had such a commanding on-screen presence that his cameos often caused the movies he was appearing in to freeze for a moment, just to announce that, holy crap, it's David Bowie. Initially hesitant to appear in movies, Bowie needed to be coaxed into starring in The Prestige, which was directed by Christopher Nolan. According to the director, he never had anyone else but Bowie in mind to play scientist Nikola Tesla, which resulted in him being somewhat upset when Bowie turned the role down. Not willing to take no for an answer though, Nolan flew to New York to personally appeal to Bowie, basically begging him to appear in the film. Bowie was swayed by Nolan's passion and agreed to bless the film with his godly visage. Number 3, he once played the Elephant Man on Broadway. David Bowie was an astonishingly handsome man with cheekbones capable of cutting glass and a soul-piercing stare. This is why it might surprise you to learn that the Thin White Duke once played a man famous for being so horrendously, upsettingly ugly, he literally earned a living standing completely still and letting people stare at his face. This, of course, would be Joseph Merrick, better known by his Wu-Tang name as the Elephant Man. While little in the way of physical evidence remains of Bowie's brief tenure as a stage actor, with there only being promotional photos and publicity stills of Bowie in costume and a few stray clips here and there, reviews indicate Bowie's performance was one that cemented his reputation as not just a musician, but as a true Renaissance man who was as comfortable on stage reading lines in a diaper, oh yes, Bowie's costume was just a big cotton diaper, as he was playing a guitar. Because apparently for David Bowie, just being an internationally recognized sex symbol / rock star / musical super genius wasn't enough for him. Number 2, he once finished a set with a lollipop sticking out of his eye. David Bowie's distinctive mismatched eyes were a result of a childhood altercation with a friend, resulting in his left pupil being permanently dilated. Effectively blind in that eye, Bowie had problems with his peripheral vision, which resulted in him being hit in the eye socket by a lollipop thrown by a fan while performing on stage in Norway in 2004. The lollipop, which became physically lodged in Bowie's bad pupil, needed to be forcefully ripped from the singer's eyeball by a stagehand. An annoyed Bowie chastised the crowd before regaining his composure and joking about how lucky he was that the lollipop had hit his bad eye. David Bowie then told the crowd that he'd play the extra long set, presumably featuring the song The Laughing Gnome about 8 times. Number 1, he didn't do any of the contact juggling in Labyrinth. One of Bowie's most famous film roles is that of Jareth, the Goblin King in the film Labyrinth. A question Bowie was asked repeatedly following the release of the film is how long it took him to master contact juggling, a skill Jareth possesses and shows off multiple times throughout the film. Bowie's response was to laugh and explain that the juggling was actually done by somebody else, specifically master juggler Michael Moschen. To achieve the effect that Bowie was able to deftly manipulate a steel ball with his long, slender man fingers, Moschen hid behind Bowie and put his arms through his goblin cape. This is exactly the sort of things kids do when they're pretending to be Goro from Mortal Kombat. This is a huge testament to Moschen's skills because he was able to make the orb of condensed goblin powder dance across his fingertips completely blind. It also really speaks to the mystique surrounding Bowie that audiences saw him display a skill nobody had ever seen him talk about or mention before and still assumed it was him. I mean, it's really not unreasonable because this does sort of seem like the thing David Bowie would be amazing at. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below. Do not forget to subscribe. Brand new videos every day of the week. Videos from the archives over there on the right. Link to a new channel I started in the description below, so click on that to check it out. And as always, thank you for watching.